great to be on stage, great to be here, great to be the second woman on stage. Let me find the clicker. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today very quickly is growing globally. Are you ready to grow globally? What are the 5 steps that ensure that you're going to limit the risk of global growth? And first of all, we'll start with why the hell is Eventbrite talking about this? So let's talk about Eventbrite and how it's a disruptive business and how it's been where you are at the moment and how we've grown. So basically, we were created in 2006 out of Silicon Valley at a time when technology was already completely changing the way we live. But at that time as well, there was a piece of research that came out showing that 3 out of 5 people were already spending more time on their device rather than their significant other, which is a bit of a problem because the sense of belonging is a very basic human need. You probably heard of Abraham Maslow, this philosopher from the 40s who listed the human needs. Belonging is the 3rd one. So the idea of Eventbrite was how to turn technology, which has a tendency to isolate people, and use technology to make them be together. So Eventbrite was born out of this idea, and although at the beginning we thought we're probably going to be used by small classes, little workshops, etc., we ended up being used by all sorts of enormous events as well. And that realization really came to truth in 2012 when we were used for the enormous concert of the Black Eyed Peas in Central Park in New York. And then we thought, aha, interesting. Very small classes, all the way to tens of thousands of people kind of concerts, everyone's using us. So what does Eventbrite actually do, very quickly? Well, we enable event organizers to create an online presence for their event. So, event listed, explain the date, the price of the ticket, etc., can create that in minutes. Then we enable event organizers to promote their events, whether it's through email or social media integration, basically promote it very easily in a very timely manner, and also empower attendees and people who are discovering the event to do all the promotion for the event organizers through social media integration. Then we enable event organizers to do something very complex, but make it look very easy, which is to collect money and sell tickets. And finally, we shed the light on the black box of ticketing and give an awful lot of data back to the event organizers so that they're permanently in control of what's going on. Information about where are the tickets being purchased, what are the promotional campaigns that are working the best, and so on and so forth. Just so that with every event that they organize, they become more and more clever, they save more time and more money. At present, Eventbrite, that's about $200 million in funding. We're being used all over the world. We have processed $3 billion in ticketing sales, and we have close to 400 employees. We have offices in, of course, San Francisco still, Latin America, Melbourne, Australia. In Europe, we have UK, Ireland, and Germany. So let's talk about global expansion, which is really the core of what I'm talking about today. Well, it's perfectly normal for a company to want to go from local to global. That's a perfectly expected aspiration. And it's also a very exciting time for a startup to go global and start looking at foreign markets. But I'm not going to teach you anything new. There are a lot of risks attached. You could lose your focus on your innovation because some of your product people are not going to be focusing on innovating. They're going to be focusing on local requirements to fit the Chinese market, for instance. You could lose your company culture and identity, because at the moment, everyone's in the same room. It's very easy to have a culture and a strong identity. But when you start having employees who are 8 hours time difference from you, who you barely speak once a week to on Skype, then it's another challenge. And of course, you could lose a lot of money and resources because we're talking about addressing a brand new audience, and that's very expensive. So I would say the first questions to ask yourself before you do anything to do with global expansion is, am I ready? What is my position in my home market at the moment? Am I the leader? Am I growing very strongly? In a nutshell, can I really afford right now to take some of my resources away from my home country and invest them into this new country? Or is a competitor basically going to eat me alive while I'm not paying enough attention in my home country? If the answer is yes, let's move on and have a look at the 5 steps which we think at Eventbrite will minimize the risks. So the first step is country prioritization. Of course, there are tons of countries that could represent an amazing opportunity for you, but you're not going to go after 20 countries at the same time, right? So you can look at 2 things, internal data and external data. So internal data, let's say your startup your offering is somehow in English. You probably have a lot of people around the world who are using it, some people in your home country, but also people elsewhere. Well, have a look. Who is using you from where? Because chances are that market where you're being used sort of, without even trying to be used, is probably the market where you're getting a lot of traction, and it's the market that tells you, we need you, we want your service, we want to use your application or your offering or whatever. That's the kind of country that you should focus on. Secondly, have a look at external data. So at Eventbrite, we developed something that we call the ripeness model. Ripeness as in being ripe, being ready. That ripeness model takes into consideration a whole list of data. For instance, size of population, density of population. We're about events, so density of population is very important for us. Internet penetration, mobile penetration, adoption of e-commerce, and also the competitive landscape. We have a look at all this data, and what we do is we work with an analyst who helps us to compare the market where we come from and how it has developed, and the markets that we are currently assessing, and if we apply the same development model, how they're likely to develop as well. And that way, it's very easy to see which market is most likely to be the most lucrative or the most successful in the future. And that helps you prioritize your sort of top 5 markets where you want to focus on. This is not very time-consuming. This is not expensive. All it takes is an internet connection, all the data is online, and a few hours of an analyst's time. So basically, in a nutshell, go for the low-hanging fruit. Go for the market that are already showing interest in what you're offering, and go for the ones that look very much like your home country and look like they could develop as well or better or faster than your home country. Secondly, plan in depth how you're going to enter the market. So let's say you've decided, okay, I'm going to go for Germany. That's my next market. It's not the time to invest yet. You need to do a lot more investigation. You need to look, for instance, into the salient aspects of taxation, legislation, the fun part, basically, and have a look at things like, okay, I need a local bank account to pay local people to get paid. So I need a local entity. If I need a local entity, do I need a local office? What are the local employment laws, for instance? You also need to look at the local customs. Do people need face-to-face interaction? Is everything about introduction, for instance? There are countries like, well, I'm not going to give example, but there are countries where you can do business from a distance. You can send a sales guy once a week for a couple of days, and he'll bring back some deals. There are countries where, no, you need to lunch with people. You need to have dinner with people. You need to go to their daughter's wedding in order to form a relationship and really start doing good business. What is the country like? And thirdly, a big, big, big topic is localization. Now, notice that I haven't said translation. I said localization, which is a lot more work. Translation, you can give that to a translation agency. It's done within a week. Localization, it's about making your offering completely locally relevant for the market. And it could be quite a headache. For instance, for events, which is our business, dates are very important, right? You go to an event, you need to know the date. Now, imagine in the US, do you know how to write the dates in the US, right? They use month, day, year. In Europe, they use day, month, year. So if you don't do the localization and you launch a product and it says 030215, there's going to be confusion. Is it the 3rd of February 15 or is it the 2nd of March 15? That's a typical localization kind of work, which also involves engineering, etc. So a lot to think of. I would say at this stage, there are two audiences you need to speak to. Startups, other startups that are not competing with you, that are about the same size and the same age. So for instance, I spoke a lot to friends at Airbnb and Etsy. We're all sort of, in the same kind of growth phase, and asked them how they did it, how they're going about it. Great advice from those guys. And then also start speaking to your audience. Stop making assumptions. For Germany, for instance, we organized 5 dinners with event organizers of all sizes in 5 cities in 5 days. We brought over product people from the US, and we just listened and listened. What are their needs? What are the things that they absolutely need and without which they're never going to use a solution like ours? What are the things that piss them off about the competition or the solution that they're currently using? And you're probably going to discover a lot of local requirements that you didn't even know about. Phase 3, partners. Now, the reason why I'm going to insist on partners is because I'm from marketing, so of course I'm biased, but it costs a lot of money to address a brand new audience that's never heard about you. I mean, in order to get some results, you need people to know you, to like you, to try you, and then to use you. The know you is very, very time-consuming, and it could be very expensive to build brand awareness. And that's where a partner can help. So when I'm talking about a partner, it could be a governmental organization, it could be an association, it could be a non-competing similar company, similar to yours. For instance, for Eventbrite, it could be a company that sells insurance to event organizers. They have the same audience as us, event organizers, but they're not in the same business at all. So we can help each other and share that audience. Basically, what they bring us is an audience that's already paying attention to what this organization is saying, because they use that organization. There's a trust, there is a relationship already going on. So when they're going to say, hey guys, we've partnered with Eventbrite, they're really cool, this audience is going to pay attention because they trust that company. Whereas if we address them directly saying, hey, we're Eventbrite, we're new in the market, maybe they're going to say, oh yeah, one more. And what do we bring to the partner? Well, you can bring a lot of things to the table. You can bring a technology edge. You can bring help for this partner. Maybe they're interested in your homeland. Maybe they're interested in entering Turkey, and you can help them. And also, added value, content or special discount or what have you, a special offer. Companies are always after something special that they can give to their existing audience to retain them. Step 4, so you have selected your country, you've done your due diligence, you know exactly how to penetrate the market, you've lined up your partners, they're all excited to work with you. Now is the time to act, and I would say act fast and act strong. Act fast, why? Because you've been talking to a lot of people in that market for some time. So unless your competitor are completely blind and deaf, they know that you're coming. They have an advantage, they're already on the market. They could very well launch a nasty sort of prep anti-you attack even before you've started focusing on the market. So act very, very fast. And act strong. Start PR, start lots of marketing campaigns simultaneously. Test everything. Get your founders to go and do a PR tour in this market to get a lot of momentum going. And it's also the time to send your SWAT team. Now, your SWAT team is a handful of really bright people who did amazing work in your home country who you're going to send to that new country. You may think, why? Maybe I should just employ new people in the new country. Of course you should employ new people in the new country, but it takes time. How long does it take to find an MD? 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? You don't have 12 months. So in the meantime, send someone from your home office who's done an amazing job in your home country. Send him or her over. He or she will be an amazing MD temporarily while also trying to find and build that team on the ground. And last step is keep testing and learning. Testing and learning, testing and learning, and assessing and tracking and refining. This is true for life. This is true for globalization. You should not focus on doing everything perfectly. Be ready to be scrappy, be ready for a few failures, and most of all, learn and test different things. For instance, and the reason why I'm saying this is because this new market, let's say Germany, that you're tackling today, it's not the only market where you're going to go, right? After Germany, there's going to be France and UK and Japan and so on and so forth. So you don't want to learn how to penetrate Germany. What you want to learn is how to penetrate new markets. So you need to test different things, different pricing, different marketing approaches. Make a note of what works where and why, because it's very possible that there's a set of strategies that are going to work really well around the Mediterranean, for instance, completely separate and different from a set of strategies that are going to work really well in Asia. And you need to test in order to know that. Don't focus on perfecting one country, focus on scaling. And last thing, just 2 little tips as an added bonus. The first one is build an international playbook. That's what we're doing at Eventbrite. It sounds a bit of a drag at first, but when you start launching new countries after new countries, that's going to be your book of reference. It starts as a diary. Just write everything that you do and write, does it work? Does it not work? And after a while, you'll be able to organize it in different chapters and basically remember how you did things and what worked and what didn't. And you can always refer back to it. Second tip is be very careful about hiring in a new market. So as we said, you've sent your SWAT team. That gives you a little bit of time. There's no emergency. You can function. You can launch without hiring locally. But when you start hiring locally, be very stringent. Remember how careful you were when you chose your founders, your co-founders. You're going to have to be just that careful or even more careful, because we're talking about people who are far away, people you speak to only once a week, 8 hours difference, different background, English is their second language maybe, they're not in the home office, so they're not aware of all the news at the same time. It's going to be a challenge to work with those people. So they need to be amazing. And one last tip, never, ever, ever hire anyone without meeting them face-to-face. There are some people out there who are excellent on the phone and on Skype, and in order to really get a feel for a person, you need to meet them face-to-face. That's it for today. So just to recap, the 5 steps of international growth is prioritize your markets carefully, then plan really in depth how you're going to tackle those markets, then get ready with partners, then act fast and send the SWAT team, keep testing and learning. And the 2 last tips is build a playbook and be very careful how you're hiring. Thank you very much for your time.